David, welcome back. I had to get you back again after my trip. So much is on my mind, some good, some tough, and I just want to unpack it with someone who gets it. Welcome back and greetings again, David.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So, today we want to have a conversation about some of the experiences and the things that I actually observed when I was in Zimbabwe. I had the privilege of visiting Zimbabwe, a country that we both so love. I was born in Zimbabwe, even though we are now currently based in Canada. David is based in Ontario and I'm based in British Columbia. So, the purpose of this conversation is not to lecture you guys, it's just having a conversation about the things that we observe as we live abroad and also travel around the world. Things that we wish if our leaders and our people, our community back home in Zimbabwe could implement, they might potentially make a change. I will also mention that there are a lot of things that I acknowledge that are very progressive that I saw on the ground. So, David, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Isaac. Again, David is just a guy who was born in humble beginnings in Zimbabwe, just worked out in life, ended up in Canada. And again, opportunities come my way, and I'm still thank God that I'm able to work for myself. And so,
Fantastic.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
I have the privilege of knowing what you do as a businessman. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do, like it's steam cleaning?
So we do any cleaning, whatever you can think of in your house, tiles, furniture, floors, bathrooms, you name it. Move in and move out. And that's the kind of the model I built my business on.
That's fantastic. No, that's exciting. Now, David, like I mentioned earlier on, I was in Zimbabwe between September 10th to the 30th. And
Okay.
I had the privilege of being in Harare. And there are some things that really shocked me in a good way and others in a bad way. So I'm going to just list a few couple of things. For me, some of the things that really shocked me is the driving for the most part, especially in the central business district in Harare. It's really bad. Like people literally, you probably have witnessed this before, David. Some people actually drive in the opposite lane. In Zimbabwe, people drive on the left. In Canada, we drive on the right. But literally, I noticed that people would rather spend 5 hours just stuck just because they don't want to observe the rules, to give each other way. Number two, I also observed that the downtown, it seems like there's a lot of informal setup. Like people are just selling things on the downtown. And of course, no offense, people have to do what they have to do to survive. But I have traveled to Switzerland, David, I've shared this with you, and it's a different country, of course. But I see a lot of orderliness. I know in Canada, people don't just sell everywhere, right? So those are some of the things that I want us to kind of like unpack. But on the good side, I saw that there was Trabablers interchange. It was complete. It's good. There was no traffic congestion on that. But the real question for me is like, was the cost really justified? Is it, can the country do more of those kind of projects? I've traveled in the US and I'm sure you've traveled as much, David, and you've seen even much bigger projects. But I'm glad that there's that kind of progress. And there are a lot of other people also who are doing some projects, farming. I visited some farmers. So I'm curious, what do you think and what has been your experience visiting Zimbabwe? And what do you think could be some of the things that our leaders and our people in the community can do to make the country develop much faster?
Thank you, Isaac. That's a great observation and somehow perplexing.
Yeah.
When you're in Harare CBD, and so, what I'm probably going to do is to talk about systems. This is what I believe. Zimbabwe right now has the opportunity. I saw a post the other day to say Zimbabwe is open for people to come back, but
Yeah.
I wonder how much are we ready for that? Because I'm going to take you years back when I was a young fellow. My dad would take me to the city, but where the bus terminal was, it
Yeah.
was outskirts of town.
Yes.
So depending the direction that you were going, so if you were going north, the furthest north point in the CBD, that's where the rank was. If you're going south, The southest point, the furthest point of CBD in the south, that's where the rank was. What am I talking about? I'm talking about system. So somebody sit down and say, okay, we want business in the CBD. We don't want to congest that. So
Yes.
why don't commuters and buses offload people here and people can walk in CBD? I remember First Street, one of those streets in Harare. There's no cars on that street, maybe a little bit there. But the most part of that street is not for cars driving. Why? Well, because it's a highlight street in Harare and we want to maximize profit. And so again, we're talking about system. Thank God that now we are able to, everybody can buy a car now, which is fine. But we need systems now to say, how do we streamline the congestion in Harare? So for example, if you look at Samura Machel Enterprise Road, there's a loop that can be put in Harare where people can park outside. And then you can have a local train that just goes around all the time, picks people here, drops them up here, so that they don't have to walk the distance. You leave your car here, hop on a train, and then it takes you to all different areas in town, drop off, go your shopping, go to work and do that. When you're done, then you hop on the train again, then you go get your car and you drive home. But again, it's systems. You mentioned about people selling their products in the CBD. That's a great invention. But again, at the end of the day, a system needs to have a lot of people involved. I'm thankful for the people who are working for themselves. But however, are they creating employment other than for themselves? Are they giving back into the government system? Because whether we like it or not, a government is like a business.
Yes.
It needs input, it needs funds. So where does the government get money from? Well, in other parts of the world, there's the taxing system. So businesses or people who are working have to pay their taxes to the government. That allows them to do those things. And then in turn, government is supposed to do what they're doing. I'm thankful for the roundabout you're talking about. Yes, we could do more.
Yes.
However, in the absence of system, let's not do things to appease people. We actually need to be developing our country. Toll gates that were established a few years ago, and there are tons of them and they're collecting money. But I don't know if that system, if I go online right now and punch in how much money was collected from the toll gates, will I get that amount? But if that is transparent, then that money, we can now tell people this money is put back in the system to do A, B, C, D, E. I'll give an example. When I went to the cemetery to look for a loved one who had died, my brother's child who died many years ago, they couldn't find where the gravesite was. And somebody opened this big book and they're going through the books. It will deteriorate. The ink will deteriorate. But now we have the computerized world that we can digitize those systems, that you can go to a cemetery and then you'll be like, oh, they can look up the name. They're all different aspects that I think we can digitize and develop. But I don't know if there's room for that. But that's what I see as like, as we progress, as we work for each other, are we putting systems in place?
That's fantastic, David. I just thought about when I was in Zurich in Switzerland, there's a famous street called Bahnhof Street. You see like all the famous businesses, they have offices there. And I was told by the guide when we were doing the tour around the city that it's very expensive to have a rental space to have a business there. But the thing is, it was very orderly. Like
Yeah,
it was very organized. I was in San Francisco. I toured the Bay Area as well in
yeah,
August. I
yeah,
saw Lombard Street, which is a very popular street that is zigzagging. But what learned from these systems is that there has to be very clear urban planning systems, but also transparency in terms of the how the money that is collected by the government is used.
yeah.
What I also want to pick your brains on, David, is I was able to visit some farmers, like I indicated. There are people who are into farming, in
Yep.
cattle vending, some that they are doing chickens. But I see a lot of hype about people saying, oh, when you retire, you should just go and into farming. But
Right.
look, farming is a really serious business. You really need capital. You really need the expertise. You really need to understand the markets. I did agricultural economics for my graduate studies. And one thing that I learned is that it's a very complex business. So, what are your views on those projects? Because I know people can grow their own food, but to uplift and go commercial so that they can make more money and grow the economy.
Okay. So this one is a bit tricky, Isaac, because the roots of farming, I happened to work on a farm at some point in my life and stayed at the farm.
You
And
did?
so I understand, but not everybody is the farmer.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the point. Yes.
Not everybody is a farmer, but unfortunately, if we look at the political struggle in our country, it's pushed from I need land, right? So we know what happened a few years ago. We took the farms from the farmers. Do we have the education? Do you know how to use a combine harvester? Do you know how to drive a tractor? Do you understand how the soil ecosystem works? Do you understand the growth patterns? So we are not exhausting all these avenues with people that really want to say, hey, I'm a farmer. Being a farmer is not something that you just wake up in the morning and say, I want to go farm. No, not everybody's a farmer. Why am I saying this? Because you are farming not just for your family, but for the long term, for the bigger scale. You actually want to provide. I'll tell you, one time I was in England and I was working in a supermarket as a cashier, and I ran green beans and the code wasn't working. So I had to punch it manually. So when I looked at it, it says product from Zimbabwe. I was so proud. And that was like 20 years ago back then. I was like, wow, we were exporting stuff from our country, right? So all those are systems that we need to provide the people who want to be farmers. And again, this is where I feel the government maybe should step in, just in general, because if you look what's happening in CBD, everybody, there are 3 products or 4 products that we're selling. Everybody's selling phones, clothes, what else?
Foodstuffs,
Food
like,
stuff.
yeah.
So what's happening to our manufacturing? I know the stuff that's happening. I was watching I try to follow stuff from home as much as we are not manufacturing fertilizer in our country anymore. What happened to that? Right. So now we're importing fertilizer to these farmers, and then it's going to ruin the system of making profit. It's going to ruin what happens when there's a drought. So kudos to those that are trying to do this. But I was talking to a friend of mine in UK. He's like, I'm going to leave UK and go home and I got land. I'm like, what do you want to do? I want to farm. I'm like, are you a farmer? Did you go to school for farming? No, that's the problem. So at the end of the day, we still have farmers locally. Some are trying. We've tried to help other farmers too as well, but we are not producing on a large scale.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I want us to move on to another aspect before we wrap up, David. I create content usually focusing on investing, personal finance, and I wanted to also just say, guys, if you are listening, but most of the time when I'm creating content, I got a lot of backlash, David. I think I told you this when I did a video on the Trabablas.
Yep.
It made me think, you see, like random people just saying, just because I mentioned that a few years when I came here, this Trabablas interchange, there was a lot of congestion around
Yeah.
this area. So this government have done good on this. Can you imagine a lot of people were lashing like streetwise must go, and
Go
someone
ahead.
mentioning that. And for me, when I was going through the comments, this person doesn't know me, and people were like, oh, this guy, you are paid, you are pushing the 2030 agenda. And it made me wonder, I'm not a politician, and I realized like a lot of toxicity that I see. It's not just in Zimbabwe, but I wish our people understand that it's a democratic right for anyone to talk about what they think. In that case, if you observe and see something that is good, what the government is doing, I
Yep.
applaud it. If I see something that needs to be done or improved, 2 things can still be right. You can call out something that is good and
Yep.
bad at the same time, right?
Yep.
So, what's your view on that, and also in terms of the mindset with regards to that perspective?
So, hey, so now we are using the online platform to express what we're feeling.
Yes.
Thank God for people who have designed phones. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, a phone is just now a tool to go on Facebook. But the same phone has Google. The
Yeah.
same phone, you can actually Google. I always talk to friends of mine. I'm like, have you checked that online? Like now we have so much information that we can use. But unfortunately, online platform for a lot of people has become their emotional support. Instead of having like, you know what, Isaac, I understand. Tell me more. Like we should be having conversation.
Yes.
I'm gonna jump into political here. I hope I'm not gonna get into trouble. There's
Oh,
nothing
yeah.
wrong with having an opposition. Like God created man and a woman. They're always opposites. If you go, I don't know in BC, but here
Yes.
it's not.
In
It's
Canada, right?
yeah, in Canada, like we see a lot of, you can have a McDonald's restaurant and next to it, there's another Wendy's restaurant.
Yes.
You can have a gas station, Esso gas station, and on the other side of the road is the Shell gas station. They are all businesses, but people choose, I'm going to go to Esso because Esso now has their own products.
Yeah.
Shell has their own product. McDonald's has their own product. Wendy's has their own product. I wish Zimbabweans could grab that mindset to say, hey, Shay Moore, what do you think about this land? Like, let's not politicize everything. We are all different. We see things different. We've got different backgrounds. We have different education. We've got different thinking processes. But this is why I think we are not moving forward because we get emotional quickly and then we stop thinking and then we want to engage in fighting.
Yeah.
And
that's not everyone.
We don't have results.
Yeah, and that's not everyone. It's some people, of course, and specifically those people who made comment. And I just took a video about the Borodo Brook, and interestingly, people were sharing comments like, "Oh, this is nice," and predictably, there are some people who are toxic, and they were saying all sort of nasty things, right? That are not even related with the video. But for me, the idea of me taking that video, it was heartwarming to see that some people actually got a glimpse of what the Borodo Brook area is. And I was also even privileged to interview a real estate person who was telling like, in that area you are talking of, it's prime area and there are houses that are worth over $1 million US.
Yeah.
And it's a gated community.
Yes.
And so that's something that I thought it's something just worth just commenting that as Zimbabweans, I think let's also build wealth, invest in other things, whether it's real estate, it's stocks, but understand that the government has a part to play, but as individuals, we also have a part to play. And the bottom line is the government has to provide a conducive environment. If it doesn't provide, that's where the country usually doesn't progress as much.
Well, I think government is not the end in all.
Definitely.
Like I've said earlier on, government, we need to look at government as a business, not in terms of profit, but in terms of how a business works. There's certain things that needs for a business to be viable, right? And however, I think we've come to a point where we are just expecting the government to do everything for us. We're expecting the government to give us the jobs, to give us this. The government can also do so much in terms of infrastructure. And so I think we need to come to that point where we can asking yourself, like, what can I do? Like, however, I started by saying I've seen a video with that pushing that people in diaspora to come back home. And I like what you're doing. You're actually showing a lot of people, because I've talked to people in Canada who think that I used to play with lions, and there is that. But the more we are using social media now to show what Zimbabwe has to offer, what Zimbabwe looks like, then whether we like it or not, you need a customer.
Yes.
You need an investor.
Yeah.
And so when you have your systems in place, we might need, like we grew up being told we're on sanctions, we're on sanctions, we're on sanctions. And I don't know if we're still on sanctions. I don't know how the trading is, but we can't exist in our own box. We need to be trading with other countries. We need to be open-minded. We have a responsibility, I think, take. In conclusion, I'll say, I'm a Canadian now, and when I travel home, I have a Canadian passport, but my passport actually says I was born in Zimbabwe. But the treatment I get at the airport is like it's a crime.
Don't
like,
even get there.
Coming here. Well, I am a Zimbabwean. I'm coming back home. There's not that welcome that says, oh, okay. There are no people who are saying, hey, what does Canada look like? What have you learned in Canada? What can we learn? It's more like, so you think you're it. So you think you're special. But no, we need each other to build together for a better country, because we are all Zimbabweans at the end of the day, irregardless of where you are.
That's a very interesting experience that I got. The appeal. And like those things, they don't really require a government. Yeah, I know in the US or even here, the fine is very punitive.
$500.
There is the environmental management agents.
Yep.
I think they charge, I'm not sure, don't quote me on this. I think it's 500 if they
It's
find you.
500 fine.
And in conclusion, I wanted to share an experience that I had. Can you imagine when I arrived, my family, we actually also have Canadian passports. And when I travel to other countries, for example, in Switzerland, no questions asked. Like you can see, even the immigration officer, they are
Mhm.
smiling at you, like, welcome,
Yeah.
enjoy. When we went to Zimbabwe, we
Yeah.
got at the airport. They had a very nice airport, by the way. It was
Yes.
upgraded. It's something that is kudos to the current government. I'm not ashamed to say that. Of course, there's room for improving. And at the airport, you can see the face when they receive you, the immigration officials in that case. A very angry face, very rude. And I remember I had a conversation. I asked to say, I have the Zimbabwean passport as
Yeah.
well. I'm a dual citizen. I have the Canadian passport as well. Can you explain? Because the other, your colleague said, okay, it's fine. They stamped this Zimbabwean passport. We
Yeah.
traveled on the Canadian passport.
Yeah.
And this lady, the immigration officer comes, she's very rude. You are being emotional. Like this person doesn't know me. Instead of explaining these things to me, she's being
Hmm.
rude. I was like, you know what? Let me just move on. I paid the $70.
25 US.
Yeah, 75 US dollars for the three of us. Money was not an issue, but for me, I just wanted clarity.
Yep.
And that's something that I observed. Customer service is dead. You
Yep.
go in a supermarket, you ask or you try something, the person is very rude, at least my experience. What has been your experience as we wrap up, David, whenever you travel back?
So I've traveled probably quite a bit.
Yes.
I had to change my mindset
Yeah.
to the extent of having the correct change. Because one time I had to wait for an hour to
Mm.
get $5 change
Yeah.
or $25 change from $100. They set the fee for 75 US dollars, but at the same time, they don't have change. And so then you'll be like, is it a gimmick for me? So just to leave after frustration. So now I actually prepare. It's a sad situation, I would say,
Yeah.
but I prepare to have the correct change to start with.
Yeah.
And again,
Smaller denomination so that you don't struggle with.
I don't fight with that. And then so I plan for it. I'm like, but I understand where people are at. But I was hoping you would share your experience when you come back home. What do they say? Welcome
Wow.
home, sir.
It's different. You
Yeah.
know, I hate to say this, but I have to be honest with you guys. I feel very welcome. I feel very relieved when I am at Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport, knowing that I'm coming back home in Canada.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to feel that way. Number
Yeah.
one, because it seems like everything has a struggle in Zimbabwe, in my own experience. You want something very simple, you ask someone, very rude. You want to go to the birth registry to get your birth certificate. Most of the guys, they are even yelling at you, like saying rude things. I think I must say, as a Zimbabwean, and it's my right to say this, when someone is being paid as a government official, they have a very important position in the society. Think of
Yeah.
it if, because if I'm coming to Zimbabwe, it gives me an impression because they should welcome people in a proper way so that people can actually feel welcome.
Yeah.
That's very important. And I must also say that it's not everyone who is very rude. There has
Yeah.
been good experiences, but it's very important, I think, as Zimbabwe, if people want the country to progress, for everyone to play a part. Just
Yeah.
make sure that you are not rude. If you don't have change, fine, but be nice at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? I remember many years ago,
Yeah.
we went to Mozambique with the family, and we were on our way back. They were asking for immunization card. I'm like, this is a Canadian that you're asking for immunization card. Like things are done proper. Like it's one of those things that I just think if we can just do better, if we are more welcoming, maybe things will be different. Like then when it comes back to systems again, lastly, I wanted to say this. If you look on your driver's license, Isaac, it
Yes.
expires.
Yes.
After 5 years, you have to go and renew your face. These are some of the systems I think if we start implementing, it goes all the way up to the voters registration because
Mhm.
we're updating our systems.
Yeah.
People who are not there with us and so on. So there's so many things to put together that if we start people asking, how can we help? What's happening in Canada? What's happening in Germany? What's happening in US? And maybe we can share one or two things that we can try to implement. I was impressed last time. I think it was that the president went to Dubai and they were talking about the camera of the police and that
Yes.
and things like that. I was like, okay, we're going somewhere, but there are people who can help us with all this information. But are we willing to listen? Are we willing to change? That's the challenge.
Yes. Lastly, David, I know you are a very busy man as much as I am. If we are to have this conversation 5 years ago, what are the sort of things that you wish to see? We are talking about this today, right? If we
Yeah.
bring you back on the podcast.
So in 5 years, let's renew our licenses.
Yes.
In 5 years, let's update the cemetery. Let's put a system, computer system that works.
Yes.
Like these are the governmental things that we can do.
Yes.
I like the border crossings right now in the airport. We are doing those things, but I think let's do more. Let's do more. Maybe in 10 years, I want to see that train that goes around the CBD,
Like
park
in
at
developed
4th
countries.
Street, park at the marketplace, park at the showground, walk, get on the train and go into CBD. Let's free the CBD of the traffic jam. Let's free that.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see.
For me, I would like to see a Zimbabwe that is very orderly in terms of those people who are selling in the CBD to be in some areas outskirts or even closer to town so that at least people can move freely. I would want to see more applications that are digitalized, and I'm glad that there is also the digitalization on the title deed. So thank you so much, David. I really appreciate the privilege of your time. And guys, make sure you visit www.streetwiseeconomics to learn more about investing, trading. Thank you so much, and bye bye.